From the air, it looks like any other piece of America. Highways, suburbs, shopping centers, farmland. But then you start noticing the numbers. A single U.S. state with a population close to that of Canada. An economy bigger than most G20 countries. A place where snow, desert, and world-famous beaches all fit in a day's drive. To millions of visitors, California is their first experience of America. And yet, Americans themselves often say it doesn't feel like America at all. It's richer and poorer, freer and more regulated, more diverse and more divided, all at the same time. Why? The answer is hiding in three invisible systems: a coastline that behaves like a border, a gold rush that never really ended, and a culture machine that exports its own version of reality to the rest of the planet. Start with a map. Most U.S. states are surrounded by other states. Turn left, right, or go north, and you're still in the same cultural stew. California sits at the extreme western edge, walled off by mountains on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other. That edge of the continent position matters. Historically, it made California the end of the road for wagon trains, migrant routes, and later the interstate highways. When you go west until you can't anymore, you don't get an average of America. You get the people willing to go all the way. Now layer in climate. Unlike the humid east and stormy Midwest, much of coastal California has a Mediterranean climate. Cool, wet winters, long dry summers. That one fact quietly rewrites the look of everyday life. Stucco houses, palm trees, outdoor malls, and year-round agriculture in the Central Valley. It feels less like U.S. heartland and more like a strange hybrid of Spain, Mexico, and a sci-fi suburb. Next, the geography bends reality. A narrow strip of coastal cities, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, holds enormous wealth and influence. Just inland, there's a massive interior of farms, small towns, and dry mountains. Those mountains don't just make pretty postcards. They block weather and force California to build one of the most complex water plumbing systems in the world. Canals, aqueducts, dams, literally moving rivers across the state. The result? A place where people live as if water is abundant, in a landscape where it absolutely is not. Lush lawns in a desert climate, almond orchards in a valley that used to flood, cities drinking water from distant mountains. That tension, between appearance and reality, is a pattern we're going to keep seeing. So before we even talk about movies, tech, or politics, California is already weird. Last stop on the continent, different climate, and a built environment that looks more like a curated illusion than a typical U.S. town. And that illusion becomes the stage for what happens next. If geography sets the stage, history picks the cast. California didn't slowly fill up with settlers the way many eastern states did. It exploded. In the mid-1800s, the discovery of gold in the Sierra Nevada turned California into a global magnet. People poured in not just from the U.S., but from Latin America, Europe, China, and beyond. Within a single generation, California went from remote frontier to booming, chaotic society, obsessed with striking it rich. Here's the important part: the gold ran out, but the mindset didn't. Whenever a new rush appears, oil, Hollywood, aerospace, tech, California is ready. It already has the mental software installed. Arrive with nothing, take a risk, reinvent yourself, hope the boom doesn't end before you cash out. Hollywood turned the state into a dream factory. For the rest of America, movies were entertainment. For California, they were an industry that paid the bills and rewrote global culture. The stories, the accents, the clothes, suddenly California became the picture in people's minds when they thought of America itself. Later, aerospace and defense contracts during the Cold War poured money into Southern California. Then Silicon Valley transformed a quiet cluster of orchards and universities near San Francisco into the command center of the digital age. Each wave attracted a new generation of outsiders: engineers from Asia, artists from the East Coast, migrants from Mexico and Central America, entrepreneurs from Europe. They weren't trying to blend into traditional America. They were chasing a specific version of the future that happened to be headquartered in California. So when people say California doesn't feel like America, they're partly right. It feels like a world capital of opportunity that just happens to share a flag with the rest of the US. And that difference is about to show up in an even more personal way, in how everyday life works. Drive 30 minutes in California, and you can cross invisible borders that feel bigger than state lines. In Los Angeles, you can start your morning in a neighborhood where you hear mostly Spanish, see murals of hometowns in Mexico, and buy food you'd struggle to find in most of the US. Half an hour later, you're in a tech office full of workers who flew in from India, China, or Europe, video calling 10 time zones at once. Then you keep driving, 2 hours inland, and you're in the Central Valley. Flat farmland, pickup trucks, small towns whose main streets could almost be the Midwest, if not for the mountains on the horizon and the sheer scale of industrial agriculture. These are islands inside one state. Immigrant cities, tech enclaves, old mission towns, beach suburbs, agricultural regions. In many states, the capital city roughly reflects the state's identity. In California, Sacramento is almost a referee between competing mini-worlds. And then there's the cost of admission. California's housing prices alone make it feel like another planet. In many regions, a modest house can cost what a mansion would in other parts of the US. That does two things. It filters who can stay, pushing out people who can't keep up, and it creates a sense of unreality for those who do. You get teachers, nurses, and service workers commuting long distances, while billionaires live on cliffs above the ocean. Pattern interrupt. That shiny image of California you see in movies? It's built on top of this imbalance. Wildfire seasons that turn the sky orange, drought years when reservoirs drop to bathtub rings, gridlocked commutes in search of the California lifestyle. So no, California doesn't feel like a typical US state because it isn't living a typical US story. It's living several extreme versions of it at once. All of this, edge geography, boom-bust history, layered populations, extreme economics, feeds into something people feel as soon as they land. The rules are different here. Politically, California often behaves like a testing ground. Environmental laws, labor protections, car standards, tech regulations. Policies often appear here first, then spread outward or trigger national backlash. Culturally, the state exports more ideas than it imports. Whether it's music scenes in LA, social media platforms from Silicon Valley, or film and TV from Hollywood, much of the global idea of cool, progressive, or futuristic life passes through California first. Demographically, many California cities are majority-minority, where no single group holds the majority. You routinely hear multiple languages in a single grocery store. For some visitors from other parts of the US, that feels like the future. For others, it feels like a different country entirely. And yet, under the surface, California is deeply American in a way that's easy to miss. It's built on stories of reinvention, risk, inequality, innovation, and constant tension between individual freedom and shared limits. It's just those themes turned up to maximum volume. This is why California can feel like it's only half paying attention to the rest of the country. It has its own crises, wildfires, housing, water, tech booms and busts, and its own orbit of global connections that stretch across the Pacific as much as across the US. So when you walk down a street in San Francisco, or drive through a valley of orchards, or watch the sunset over a Pacific freeway, it may not feel like the America you imagined. In a sense, it isn't. California is what happens when you run the American experiment at the very edge of the map, with the volume turned up and the future arriving early. It doesn't always feel like America, because for better or worse, it feels like where America might be headed next.